Okay, a relatively brief recap of the USA-Mexico game, or the Mexico victory over the United States at Estadio Akron there in Guadalajara. What a great stadium, by the way. Very nice little stadium that we don't get to see that often. It's usually we're at the Azteca. Last Mexico game was in Puebla. This is not the high altitude pollution of Mexico City. It is at altitude, but not quite at that level. Nice to see it. I'm not dodging the issue here. That was a tough watch. I began the night tweeting out to the folks on the East Coast, no complaining because of the 10:30 Eastern time start. And if you missed this game, well, you should watch it if you are a die-in-the-wool U.S. men's national team fan. But it's not the last thing you want to see before you go to bed. Or it might have been the thing that put you to bed. It was pretty rough. So we'll break down some of the things that stick out. There is some things here, and again, we can't really panic too much at all. We really shouldn't panic at all because this was about Mexico. This was about Mexico getting off the mat. Now, on the flip side, we can't do what we did after Panama, which I saw a lot of big publications. I mean, look at this tweet from CBS Sports Golazo. I know it's probably tongue-in-cheek and they're trying to get likes, but this is, stop. And we see that from so many major accounts here that cover American soccer. You know, this Poch love affair, I've been part of it, but he's learning. He's going to learn a lot of things. He's going to get hit in the face by a lot of things about CONCACAF and what it is. And that's good. And he has some time. Not a whole lot of time, but he has some time. And this may work out great, and it may not. And we saw something there that is going to give us a lot of us pause, but I would say, sweep it away, not under the rug, just sweep it out because there will be better days. We'll break it down here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe is here. And let's get into it. I was a little surprised, and I think I got vindicated when I saw the starting 11 and there was one change. Obviously, there had to be one change. As Christian Pulisic was sent home, Malik Tillman was brought in. So later, Mark McKenzie had a groin injury. He was replaced by Miles Robinson. Otherwise, it would have been the same 11. Now, in my last video, I said, you have 20 players left on this roster. Just give them all a run. See everyone for at least a good amount of time, not 5 or 10 minutes. And by the way, I think Pochettino got close to doing that. But I thought Alejandro Sendejas and Brandon Vasquez and Christopher Lund all should have probably started this game. And I know Jedi Robinson got the last window off because of load management. But maybe he should have been sent home too instead of going to Mexico so he can get ready for his club. Because this wasn't a first team game. Jedi Robinson is not a second or B or C team player, nor is Yunus Musa. So treat it a little more like that. Treat it as a game too. I'm not second guessing Mauricio Pochettino, and whatever happened, happened. But I thought it was a great move to preserve Christian Pulisic. And I thought it was guys that had a little bit of a knock, send them home. Send them home. And we'll see what we can do. But it didn't turn out to be great. And we look at this result, and it wasn't the fact they lost to Mexico 2-0. This was a beatdown. This was an absolute beatdown. The U.S. didn't get their first shot. I think since the 63rd or 64th minute, it was a really poor effort from Christopher Lund. Got one shot on target. It was in the 83rd, 84th minute from a pretty good chance from Brandon Vasquez. But this was one-way traffic. Mexico had everything going. They skipped the U.S. midfield. It wasn't a good look for Gianluca Busio and Aiden Morris, who we felt could have really, after a good first game against Panama, could have locked things down a little bit and given Pochettino food for thought about competing for those midfield spots with Tyler Adams and Johnny Cardoso and Weston McKennie. Well, it doesn't really feel like that right now. So overall, though, there was just a lack of intensity, which there is a big talent and experience gap between the two teams that took the field. This was a very good Mexico team. And when you have Cesar Huerta, who is the next big thing, in my opinion, playing the way he does, and Raul Jimenez playing as good as I've seen him play since the head trauma that he had. I mean, Raul Jimenez was exceptional with the free kick goal and then the little poke away from Tim Ream, where Tim Ream should know better. I mean, both these goals could have been avoided now that I mention it. But everything was Mexico's superiority. But I will also add this about Raul Jimenez. I could not be happier for a player. I actually pumped my fist a little bit when he scored that goal because this guy went through hell. This guy saw his career lying there on the mat. It was over, and he's come back, and now he looks really good. Great sign for Mexico because this was so huge for El Tri. Apathy was setting in. You saw it there at Estadio Akron. Empty seats, just like we saw in Puebla. Empty seats, just like we saw in the September window with games in LA and Dallas. There is apathy around Mexico. The media is crushing this program. They could not afford to lose this. Or, I'm amazed they've lost the public as they have. I'm sure they'll come back. But for Mexico not to fill out games at the U.S., that is 12 alarm bells right there. So they needed this, and I think, and we need Mexico. We don't need Mexico to slip away, but with a team with Raul Jimenez and Chino Huerta and Edson Alvarez and Romo and Montes and did I say Luis Romo? All those guys coming together, and Diego Lainez and Germán Bertarame, who looks like he's going to be a really good player. You can see some good pieces. Vasco Aguirre, even though he's been there many times, he's a bit of a retread. Is a real smart guy. And Rafa Marquez is the best Mexican player of all time, you could argue. So this was important for them, and they really, after that poor performance against Valencia, second team, it's hard to imagine they did that. And they played a little bit of a different team. They started different players in that game. This was the game for Mexico to shine, and they 100% did it. I say we should. This is the first time that USA has lost to Mexico since September 2019. I know some people who defend Greg Berhalter will go, hey, he always beat Mexico. I don't think Greg Berhalter would have done anything in this case. In the big picture, too, these are the big picture items which are important for this. Mauricio Pochettino going to Mexico and seeing what CONCACAF's all about and dealing with the resources and the facilities, which were pretty good there at Estadio Akron. He doesn't have qualifying, so he's not going to get a good look. This may be his last real look at how they play. In November, these games are going to be in the U.S., and the Gold Cup in the U.S., and the Nations League finals and semis if they make it in the United States. The World Cup's going to be in the U.S., so it all makes sense. But this is a good thing to push him out, get him out of his comfort zone, because he could not have been better received in Austin. Matthew McConaughey coming up, getting all this barbecue and all the things he could possibly want. Oh, this is great. Team playing well. You've got to see your team deal with some adversity, and they got a good shot of that. And I think it's good to get a smack in the face. It really is, especially this early. It's just the nature of sports. You've covered it so long. You don't just go and go and go. This U.S. team is resetting in many ways, but you need a little once in a while to kind of see where you're going. So we talked about Mexico, how important it was. We talked about the experience for Pochettino and, the players that were used. I thought, again, some changes should have been put in place there for the United States. They weren't. He got in Lund in the halftime. Alejandro Sendejas coming in. Later, it was Tanner Tessman, who I thought that last shift of subs, Tessman, Vasquez, were good and what they were able to do. And look, I can't sit here and tell you who stood out, because nobody stood out. There's some good moments, very few of them. That first half, it was. We felt so far away from competing. We weren't even getting close to the other half. We weren't even getting close to scoring, let alone getting a decent shot off. And I want to take a close look at some players. I know Josh Sargent's a great player, and he's going to get a goal. And I figured if he started this game, I was like, he's going to score tonight. This is his night. He got further away from scoring. Brendan Aaronson is an exciting player, and I know Poch likes him, but he can be a hot mess sometimes. And Malik Tillman, who is competing for being one of the best 2 or 3 players in the Dutch league, just hasn't shown us anything on the international stage. I will give them a break here because this wasn't the game to do it because of the opponent and a shorthanded team. But I think we all believe that this team, that 11 they ran out, was good enough to score a goal or get a shot on target. I mean, you have Jedi Robinson, Yunus Musa, who are regulars. Malik, Tillman, Josh Sargent, who you would think are close to being regulars. Brendan Aaronson, who's played enough on the national team. Tim Marine, who's played a ton. Miles Robinson, who's played a fair bit. Joe Scally has played a ton at right back. It shouldn't be that of a mismatch. You would hope that our depth was better, but depth, clearly, added to the list is an issue. And I think we've got to start looking a little closer at the love affair of the European-based players, because more and more of them are not showing they have that eye of the tiger. Josh Sargent, Malik Tillman, Brendan Aaronson. I would throw Joe Scally in here too, because he was real messy as well. Of guys that, and I like what Joe, we've got to look at these guys at how they play on the national team. We'll get a better look at it in November and whenever we can in 2025. But this talk about this guy, Brandon Vasquez had a short little stint, did a pretty nice job when he came in. Alejandro Sendejas came in, was a bolt of lightning. These are not European-based players. They impressed me more in that tiny shift. I love the fact Sendejas went forehead to forehead and wanted to, take on the whole El Tri outfit. I love that. That may have been my favorite part of the game. So I want to see more of that, I guess, but I just want to see that intent. We didn't see that intensity at all until then. And I worry that this U.S. team, going back to before the arrival, this has got nothing to do with the managers. It does, but we have seen the same thing from this players where they turn off and they don't have that run-through-the-wall intensity. And you figured it would be without question with Pochettino, knowing what's at stake. And again, traveling to Mexico is tough. Short turnaround, Saturday to Tuesday. But these players, they need a kick in the backside. And they need some guys to get angry. And I'm glad I saw it from Alejandro Sendejas. They need some leadership. And that looks like vastly not involved. I would say Tim Ream was the leader, but he had a real rough game. And I don't know. That's just something to keep an eye on. But as I said, we take this with a grain of salt and we push forward. It was a good experience, an important road experience, one which we will not get. We don't have qualifying. And now we have Pochettino, I'm sure, is going to sit in and absorb, go, okay, this might be a little tougher. And I need to push the buttons a little bit. And maybe I can't rely on this guy or this guy. He's not making those wholehearted decisions, but he has something in his memory banks about a certain player or two that may get one more chance as opposed to two more chances or just get into that squad. So it's all going into the bank. Next time we see this team, it will be the Nations League in November. It looks like it could be Jamaica, their opponent. These are the quarterfinals. The U.S. have been great in the Nations League. Hope they do it again, but nothing's guaranteed. Certainly, it's good that they're playing at home. We'll see if this team can push forward and get a result. The Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast. All podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. We will have a lot to talk about as we move towards November. We'll be here all the time talking about the beautiful game. Some great World Cup qualifiers going on. Lots of fun stuff. Have a good night and a good morning.